Really privileged, honored to be joined now by Scott Howard Cooper. You remember Scoop, of course, lives in our area still. Wrote for the Sacramento Bee, was a Kings beat reporter for a number of years, wrote for NBA.com, knows the game well. Credited author now, wrote a book on Steve Kerr, outstanding book, and now has a new book out, Kingdom of Fire, Kareem Wooden, Walton in the turbulent days of the UCLA basketball dynasty. We see copies in the background. You can get your copy anywhere you want to now on Amazon, all your bookstores, everything else. Scoop, it's good to have you back in. How are you, my friend?
This is great. How are you guys?
We're doing fantastic. We're we're doing fantastic. So, Scott, catch us up to speed. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're a graduate of USC, correct?
I am.
Okay. So how did you get so involved in writing a book on UCLA?
The idea would not let me go. It's something I had started to think about early in the 2000s and kind of chipped away at here and there as I was doing various projects and maybe seeing somebody along the way that I thought might be helpful. And that passion never left me. I always thought it was a great idea, not so much to take a look at this team, the records, and obviously the winning and all the great players, because that's been done 1,000 times. I was really struck by how this team was a model of stability when everything going on around them was anything but. Remember, America in the 1960s and 1970s, Vietnam, civil rights, all these different issues. Watergate comes up, Richard Nixon, good stuff as well, fun stuff, the music scene, Summer of Love, all these different things going on. And I wanted to put the greatest dynasty in college basketball history in the context. I wanted to use the backdrop of those times to show how remarkable that success really was.
Well, you've done a tremendous job with it. I've had a chance to read the book. It is a great, great read. Of course, it starts with Kareem and the recruiting of him, and it was so interesting. John Wooden was not a guy who really went out and recruited anybody. I found that story just so fascinating. You take it through his 3 NC2A championships, obviously Walton and his character too. What were maybe a couple of things that were the most surprising things you found out about during that whole dynasty run?
Well, there's a few things. That's one of the parts that excited me most, that for all the hundreds of articles and TV moments that have been done about this team, that I was able to come up with some new stuff. And you learn things like how close Lou Alcindor at the time, he became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, of course, after leaving college. But Lou Alcindor in his UCLA time, I think, was much closer to Muhammad Ali than most people realized. John Wooden was much more connected to the Richard Nixon White House than most people realize, because he, at that point, was on his way to becoming lifelong friends with Richard Nixon's chief of staff, H.R. Haldeman, a Bruin as well, the man who led the fundraising effort to build Pauley Pavilion. So when I talk about UCLA in the backdrop, in the context of America and the turbulent times, the Bruins were not a part of that. The Bruins were connected to it on some real serious levels.
Yeah, no doubt they were. All right, Scott. Unfortunately, I want to do an hour podcast with you. We will, about the book, because it deserves it. But in the time we have, when we're focused in on Kings and Lakers a little bit, want to share with people out there in the book. There's a Jeff Petrie reference, of course, back to the days when he played at Princeton, and he was a victim of John Wooden and the success at the Wizard of Westwood.
Yeah, we get Jeff Petrie in there. He was a star at Princeton, and he had the misfortune of going up against the Bruin machine and got locked up by one of their best defenders, a guy named Kenny Booker. And a couple other Sacramento connections. Paul Westphal is in there.
Yeah.
Of course, Bill Walton's all over the book. And
Paul Westphal was the one who turned down UCLA. He went USC.
John Wooden always considered Paul Westphal the one that got away. He loved Paul Westphal, and Paul was very much of a John Wooden kind of player, kind of person, and a local kid from the South Bay in Southern California. John Wooden really wanted Paul Westphal, and Paul went to USC.
Yeah, no question there. And Bill Walton, we all got to know him as part of the Sacramento Kings broadcast team. He was always a lot of fun to be around. And obviously, he won a couple of NC2A championships, but his final year didn't really go the way that everybody thought it would.
And he's regretted it the rest of his life. Next time he shows up in Sacramento, if anybody says to him the words North Carolina State or Notre Dame,
Yeah.
Oregon State, he will immediately crumble. Those losses have stayed with him the rest of his life. He knows now, he realizes it, that he had the opportunity of a lifetime to win 3 titles in a row. And because that team in general was not focused, but especially their leader, their star, Bill Walton, was not focused. They couldn't recover from it, and they ended up losing. And as I said, he's regretted it ever since.
Yeah, no question. Again, the book is Kingdom of Fire. You can see it in the background if you're on our YouTube. Kareem Wooden and Walton. The book is out. You can get it everywhere. It is a great read. Obviously, we're focused in on LeBron tonight and what he might do against Sacramento. He just eclipsed the 40,000 point total. He obviously broke Kareem's record last season. How do you put that all into the context and what you learned about from Kareem and bringing it today to LeBron?
Well, in both cases, obviously great talent, but even beyond that, the longevity that is required
Yeah.
to get to 38,387 points as Kareem did, and then for LeBron to surpass that and be all the way into the 40,000s now. It's not just about being an amazing talent. It's about doing the right things, taking care of yourself, trying to eat right, getting enough rest. And it's not to say you need to be a perfect student all the time, but you have to bring the right focus. You obviously have to have a passion for the game. That's how Lou Alcindor was at UCLA and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was in the pros, and it's certainly how LeBron James is now as a pro player as well.
Go ahead, Rick.
No, I just want to ask Scott, you talk about the longevity of it all. When we talk about that, yes, I say LeBron is the best, but I do kind of give him an asterisk on that because LeBron James came into the league straight out of high school, and he was asked to be the man on his team, every team that he's been on since he's been in the league. So I look at it on kind of a slant when you try to compare him to some of the other great players when everybody back then, might have went 2, 3, and even 4 years in college.
That's a great point. The counter might be that you play 4 years in John Wooden's program, 3 on the varsity and 1 on the freshman. Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar may have arrived as professional ready as any player in history.
Yep. No, there's no doubt about that. His 3 years, he was ready to go when he came back. And LeBron, obviously, we saw him the first game here in Sacramento. Scott, want to ask you, since we have you on, and you obviously wrote the book on Steve Kerr as well, which is a great read and also available too. I encourage people to get that. Steve Kerr just recently signed the 2-year contract for $35 million. What did you make of that? Did that surprise you at all that Steve Kerr extended with the Warriors, or what's your take?
No, the whole thing with Steve for many years has been, how is he feeling physically? And it's been a long time since there seems to have been a flare up of his back problem. So that was always the thing. He's still young enough that he knows he can keep going for a while longer. And if there comes a time, and after the end of this contract or another few years after that, that he wants to move on to something else, to go back into broadcasting or just to sit on the beach around San Diego and do nothing, he's young enough that he's able to do it. So no, I think the real question was his health. And once that got resolved, it wasn't a big surprise. He loves his job. He had wanted to be a coach basically his entire life. He didn't think he would have to wait so long to become one, because he never imagined playing 15 years in the NBA, but he loves his job. He loves being a part of the Warriors in particular. He loves being on the West Coast and keeping those roots. So no, I think there could come a time where he looks into something else, not a different NBA job, but just something else other than being a basketball coach. But for the time being, he's still got that great fire for the job.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this. Do you actually think that Steve Kerr will end his coaching career with Golden State? Because I look at it right now is that he's so dedicated to his players, but I'm looking at Golden State, this probably being their last dance. This is the last dance with the Splash Brothers and the Golden State Warriors, as we know as the dynasty. So do you think Steve Kerr will stay there even if they have to go back through a rebuilding situation?
I do. Again, at least for the time being, as long as his health holds up. I do. As I said, I think he appreciates all the good that he has in life and how fortunate he is to be in a situation that even once Bob Myers left, and he and Bob were very close friends, as well as having that working relationship. The extension also indicates that he feels just as good about moving forward with Mike Dunleavy. And Steve is not afraid of the losses. He's not afraid of putting in the work to develop players. I don't think it's that. It's if he felt the situation around him gave them the chance to continue winning once they got built back up. That you're right, Henry, that they had to go through that rebuilding, but that he had the people there in the front office, the supportive ownership, that everybody, all the signs were that they were still capable of getting back at some point.
No, it's great. Although his contract does match up with Steph Curry's in terms of length. So we'll see after those couple of years how that works out. Scott, one final thing before we let you go. One of the nuggets I thought was very interesting about John Wooden is that, he was very good friends with Jerry West. They would have time they'd spend together at their favorite little deli that nobody knew about in their back kitchen. And that John Wooden was offered the Lakers head coaching job as well.
Yeah, wouldn't he have been terrible as an NBA coach? Thankfully he knew it. He understood the difference between running a college program and an NBA program. And if you think that it's a big contrast now, imagine what it was like in the 1970s. He had no interest in it, and thank goodness he did realize that. He could have done the money grab, but he did not. That would have been a terrible situation. He may not have lasted to the end of training camp. He may have thought, he may have seen the attitude from some players. Working for Jack Kent Cooke, the owner at the time, would have been miserable. Jack was overbearing and pompous and basically the opposite of John Wooden in so many ways. So, yes, he did get that offer. There had been some other offers along the way, college and pro, but obviously he was not going to leave the college game. And after a while, once he started having grandkids and everybody was still in Los Angeles, he had no interest of leaving UCLA at all. He was at a certain point into the dynasty, he became a Bruin lifer.
Well, that's why he's the Wizard of Westwood. And of course, Coach K turned down the Lakers as well. Scott, this is a great book. I encourage everybody to go out and get it. Again, tell everybody how they can get the book.
Well, it's at the major bookstores, and we've gotten great support around the entire country from the fabulous independent bookstores that have it in stock, and then all the usual places online. It should not be hard to find. We're through a major publisher, Atria and Simon & Schuster, so it's out there. It's easy to get.
Scott, you're one of the best. I always enjoy talking with you, Henry, and I appreciate you coming on with us. And I encourage everybody, if they haven't gotten your Steve Kerr book, to get that too. Title one more time on that.
Steve Kerr, A Life.
Very simple. And that was a great read too. There's so much to Steve Kerr's background that you covered, which is just remarkable. Scott, appreciate the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
All right. That's Scott Howard Cooper, a good friend of ours and somebody we've known for a long time who worked in this area. And he's a great writer, Henry.
Yeah, he is, man. And an overall good guy. I used to like talking to Scott.
Absolutely. All right. We'll go to the break. We'll come back. We'll break down Kings Lakers tonight. It is game night right here, Sacktown Sports 1140.